Hi guys, good morning. Thank you for joining me this morning. Just give me a second to get set up over here. While I'm doing that, why don't everyone tell me how you're doing, where you're tuning in from, how's your week been, what have you been up to? Okay, let me see. Oh, it's been a very interesting morning, absolutely beset by technical difficulties. It started last night. I don't know if you guys want to hear about this, but started last night. My phone crashed. So I lost everything on my phone and I had to do a restore. And the thing was, it crashed at like 11:30 p.m. So I was up till like 2:30, 3 in the morning trying to fix my phone. Good morning, Veronica. Thank you for joining us this morning. Hi, Jacinta. Tashi Dele Jampela. So I was up until 2:30 trying to fix it. But as a result of that, my phone's fixed, but as a result of that, I've lost all of my WhatsApp messages. So if any of you are expecting a WhatsApp message reply from me and you don't get it, that's why. It's because I've forgotten that I owe you a reply because I don't have my old messages to refer to anymore. All right. So whilst we wait for a few more people to join us, what has happened this week? Stupa, we've been working on Rinpoche's Indoor Relic Stupa. That's the biggest news, and that has gone on very, very well. If you guys would like more regular updates about the progress of the Indoor Relic Stupa, you can join the Tsem Rinpoche Relic Stupa news group. So that's on Facebook, and we post twice a day, sometimes more, with updates on what's going on with the Stupa. The throne is done, so that's been completely filled. The rings, the next step up, that's done as well. That's been completely filled as well. Then we did that yesterday, and then we moved the bumba, so the curved portion of the stupa. We moved that onto the stupa yesterday and started filling that. Actually, you know what? Let me see if I've got pictures for you. Don't know if you guys can see this. So yeah, that was all done yesterday, and we will be continuing work on the stupa today. It was fun because we got to stand on scaffolding. I don't know if you guys can see this, but so we were on scaffolding yesterday and filling in the bumpa, and we got about 2/3 of the way up, finishing off today, and then we've got like the neck to put up and pills to put in. So yeah, that's going on. So if you guys want more regular updates about what's going on with the stupa, you can join the Tsem Rinpoche Relic Stupa news group, alright? And the next stage will be the pujas, which will be taking place on September the 4th, which is the 1-year anniversary of our Guru, His Eminence Sam Tugu Rinpoche's Parinirvana. There'll be 3 pujas on that day, including a 1,000 offering Lama Chopa. So on the 3rd, there will be a lot of volunteers in KFR preparing for that puja. 1,000 offering meaning 1,000 water bowls, 1,000 flower offerings, 1,000 incense offerings, 1,000 toma offerings, and so on. Alright, so that will be taking place on that actual big Lama Chopa puja will be taking place on September the 4th at 3 p.m. And you're invited, but please do remember to abide by the SOP. So social distancing, wear your mask, and all of that stuff. And then on the 5th, we have a very busy month this month. But on the 5th, we will be having our Ulam Bana Pujas, including the Trakse Puja. So if you guys haven't already made your Ulam Bana offerings, there's still time to do that. But that will be taking place on the 5th. And then, excitingly, on September 13th, we will be having our second Pets Day out. So this time, pets of all sizes will be allowed. You are allowed to bring more than 1 pet, but do make sure that you have adequate human supervision for your pets. So if you bring 6 dogs, please don't bring somebody to take care of all 6 dogs who is not familiar with dogs, all right? Bring 2 or 3 people at least, okay? But that will be on September 13th. And all pets of all sizes are allowed, and we will be having the same, a lot of the same stuff. So there'll be an off-leash area, if I'm not mistaken. Places for our pets to poop, picnic area food, and bring your own food, but there'll be water provided and pet's blessing and all that. Okay, so that's taking place on September 13th. So we have a really busy month ahead of us. Okay, so let's get started for today, since it seems like Oh, hold on, let me see this. So weird. Facebook has been acting up lately. I mean, apart from my phone crashing yesterday, then, you know, lots and lots of technical difficulties. We call it obstacles. Okay. All right, so before we get started today, do a short prayer to ascribe the source of the information that's going to be shared today as per tradition. So I go for refuge in my Lama, from whom I received these teachings. I go for refuge in the lineage Lamas, from whom my Lama has received these teachings. Okay, so last week I spoke about frustration. I talked about where frustration arises from. I talked about how frustration impacts our spiritual practice, and I also talked about how we can effectively deal with frustration. So during the talk, someone actually left a comment which I wanted to talk about today before we go any further on today's topic. Excuse me. Because I think that the issues and the questions and points that she raised are very relevant. It's something that a lot of us face, especially when people are practicing on their own without a spiritual guide or without a teacher. So Anna Carolina Alfinito, I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your name, she commented to say that it's a bit embarrassing to think about frustration and break it down. This leads to finding intentions or desires that we were not aware of and maybe don't like. Yeah, so I wanted to get into this a little bit before I properly go into today's topic, because I think that what Anna raised is definitely true, which is to say that when we meditate and contemplate and we go into our own minds, there can be things that we dig up or that we conclude that can be embarrassing. Because sometimes when we contemplate and we honestly look into ourselves, we uncover all kinds of things that we were not previously consciously aware of. So they're there, but we are not consciously aware of the extent to which they affect us, or that they influence our thoughts, our behaviors, our actions, our decisions. But, excuse me, I've been painting and filling this mixture into the stupa for the last 2 days, and it's full of camphor and starting to get to me. But all right, so what we need to think is, although this act of contemplation may raise points that we find embarrassing, we also need to think, who is it embarrassing to? When we meditate and we uncover things about ourselves, you think, who else is actually party to your thoughts, right? So both on an ultimate level and on a conventional level, the answer is actually no one. Because on an ultimate level, if we go into emptiness, which we're not going to talk about today because super big topic, which I have not fully grasped as well, so I'm not going to go into that. But if we talk about emptiness on an ultimate level, we don't inherently exist. So there's no inherent I to exist to experience the embarrassment. On a conventional level, if you contemplate and you're honest with yourself and you come up with points and conclusions about yourself that you find embarrassing, here's the thing. No one needs to know what conclusions you came up with. All right? You don't need to explain it to the world. So one thing that Rinpoche was very firm on and very clear about was the topic of Geluk humility. So if you don't already know, Kechara follows the Geluk tradition, which is the yellow hat tradition of Lama Tsongkhapa. And in our tradition, humility is very much emphasized, and that was a quality and a training and a characteristic that our Rinpoche also very much emphasized. And so something that Rinpoche often highlighted, examples Rinpoche often highlighted are examples of people who are very humble about their realizations and about their practice. And so Rinpoche would often give us examples of people who had quietly transformed over many years, people who meditated, people who practiced, and people who changed over time, and didn't necessarily talk about the changes that they experienced. Rather, how they convinced others about the power of Dharma was by others actually observing them and observing the transformation that they've made over the years, and that transformation becoming the source and point of inspiration for other people. All right, so when you meditate and you contemplate and you come up with conclusions about yourself, or you come up with, as Anna said, what was it? Intentions and desires that we're not previously aware of about yourself. And you find them embarrassing. First of all, you can think, who's it embarrassing to? No one, because no one, ultimately, on an ultimate level, if you talk about emptiness, there is no one to experience the embarrassment because there's no inherent I. But on a conventional level, you can also talk about it in the sense of humility, that no one actually needs to know what conclusions you came up with. Only you need to know for yourself, all right? And if you think about it, what is more embarrassing? Is it more embarrassing? Is it worse to be embarrassed with ourselves? Or is it worse to continue to be harmful to others? All right, so which one actually creates more damage? If you don't meditate and you don't self-analyze and you continue to hurt other people, or if you do meditate and you give yourself a fighting chance to actually uproot what it is, what actions you continue to perform, what habits you continue to have, which continue to harm other people. All right, so which one's actually worse? Being embarrassed yourself or being harmful to others? So I talked about this in previous weeks, which is the topic of obstacles. And so if you allow embarrassment to become a stumbling block or something that makes you reluctant to meditate on your mind, ultimately, the only person who is harmed by our reluctance to meditate and our reluctance to introspect and to contemplate is ourselves. Why? Why are we the only people who will experience the disbenefits of reluctance to practice? Because when you don't meditate and when you don't introspect and you don't practice, you are the one who is accumulating the negative karma of harming other people, because you don't give yourself a fighting chance to actually identify the habits that you have which are harmful to other people, and therefore you don't give yourself a fighting chance to actually do something about them. All right, so ultimately you're the only person who is experiencing this benefit, because you are the one who's accumulating the negative karma, which you then experience yourself over and over again as you take rebirth in samsara over and over again. All right. Good morning, King Hoi, and good morning, Phoebe. Thank you for joining us today. Phoebe, aren't you helping out with the stupa in DA? Good morning, Amy. Thank you for joining us from Canada. It's nice to see you here. All right. So it's important for us to meditate and to contemplate and to analyze the bits about ourselves which to analyze our reactions, to analyze our thoughts, to analyze how we behave amongst others, to analyze how we act, to analyze how we think, how we speak, because all of these things are what is accumulating negative karma for us. All right, and so the example that Rinpoche always gave was the example of anger, which is that if we don't look at ourselves and we don't look at how we always react in an angry way, over time our negative habits can actually grow so big that they become beyond our control. So when you're young and a child throws a tantrum, the example Rinpoche gave, when you're young and a child throws a tantrum, it might seem cute, you know, when a kid who is 2 or 3 years old and they're stomping their feet, you know, kicking up a fuss, and they speak perhaps in a more mature way, you know, adults around them might think, oh, that's so cute, look at them, they're talking like an old person, and you know, so on. But if you transpose that behavior over to someone who is in their 30s and their 40s, if somebody behaves like that when they're 30 or 40, it's not so cute anymore, all right? Can you imagine a 30 or 40-year-old stomping their feet in a supermarket because somebody didn't have stock of what they wanted, all right? So what Rinpoche always said is that if we don't quickly arrest, we don't quickly immediately confront and avert negative habituations that we enact over and over again, over time they can grow so big that they become uncontrollable until they become our almost automatic way of reaction. So there are certain people that you can see who, if they don't make an effort to arrest and control their anger, over time it does become bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point where after many years, all they do is they seem to react out of anger, they seem to think out of anger, they seem to behave out of anger, they seem to speak out of anger, and they can't help themselves. And you know, sometimes these people, when you like tell them, hey, why did you say that? Why did you behave like that? And you actually go through it with them, they get a moment to stop and think, and they go, oh, yeah, why did I behave like that? I didn't actually want to behave like that. I don't see the benefit of behaving like that. But the thing is, they already did. All right. And so they behaved in such an angry, or they reacted in such an angry way to the point where it was so automatic, they didn't have a choice or an option to actually stop it. All right. So what I'm trying to say is that if we use embarrassment, or if embarrassment becomes a reason for why we don't want to introspect and we don't want to contemplate and to look into ourselves honestly, embarrassment can become a stumbling block to our spiritual progress. It can become the reason why we continue to accumulate negative karma. All right. And if you think about it, everyone has the same thoughts and same desires that we have. As humans, we have a tendency to think that we're special. We have a tendency to think that we are unique individuals, that there's nobody else in the world like us. But ultimately, honestly, if you cut through all of the mud and all of the nonsense and I want to use a word that I'm not allowed to say on live stream, but if we cut through all of the nonsense, we're really not that special, all right? All of us want the same things at a very, very base level. All of us want good food. All of us want to be praised. All of us want to be well liked. All of us want to have a particular partner. All of us want our partner to respect us. All of us want people to be kind to us. All of us want, a fantastic Christmas with plenty of gifts and so on. We want a pleasant family, harmonious family rather. We want to have a job promotion. We all want the same things, all right? None of us are special in that regard. So, if we think that uncovering emotions and desires and thoughts that we were previously not aware of is a reason for embarrassment, I'm here to tell you that it's not, because everyone, if you talk to people, pretty much everybody has the same thoughts and desires and wishes and wants as you. We're not that special, all right? So if we do choose to share our conclusions with other people, we will find that most of the time there is also somebody else that we can relate to. Or we will find that when we have the courage to honestly acknowledge these embarrassing things about ourselves, that they lose their power and their hold over us. The example that Rinpoche always gave is that when we've done something wrong and it's something that we're embarrassed or we're shameful of, if we try and hide it, it leads to a lot of anxiety. It leads to us behaving in a very deceptive way, and it leads to us being very, Malaysian word here, very, very kanjiong all the time, which actually means anxious. Because we are always so afraid of we are always governed by the fear of discovery. We're always so afraid that somebody will find out who we really are, what we've really done. So what Rinpoche always said was, if you allow yourself to be wrong and you become okay with being wrong, what it is that you have done that you're so embarrassed of, or what it is that the way that you behave, the qualities about yourself that you're honest about yourself, honest to yourself with, they start to lose power and hold over you. Why? Because you no longer have to do things to try and hide. You no longer have to spend the mental energy and the mental effort and time and mental space to try and figure out how you can hide those things from other people so that they never find out. Right? And when I say introspect, when I say acknowledge, I'm talking about honestly acknowledging. I'm not talking about openly acknowledging, because honestly acknowledging and openly acknowledging are two different things, all right? I say honestly because you need to know this for yourself. You don't need other people to know about it. Nobody else needs to know about it. And you need to know that there are parts of you, there is a part of me, there is a part of us that is not necessarily beautiful. Is, for lack of a better word, there are parts about ourselves that are pretty ugly. There are parts about ourselves that are undesirable. There are parts of ourselves that are not very nice. But at the same time, there are also parts of us which are kind. There are also parts of us that are giving. There are also parts of us that are generous. There are also parts of us that are forgiving. And so those are the parts of us that we want to boost up. Those are the parts of us that we want to nurture and we want to develop and we want to encourage. The beautiful thing about Buddhism's teaching on impermanence is that these harmful aspects or harmful characteristics or qualities about ourselves are not permanent. So in the same way that you can boost and encourage and nurture the positive qualities of ourselves, we can also do something about the bits that are not particularly fantastic and that embarrass us. All right? And the fact that we find it embarrassing, or the fact that we find it shameful, means that we do have a conscience, which is a good thing. All right, it's a good thing that we have a conscience, because it means that we have the mental capacity to identify what is beneficial and what is not. And we have a conscience to feel shame about it, to feel shame about the bits which are not beneficial. All right, that's already a step up. If you think about it, that's already a step further than certain people, because some people feel no shame about the non-virtuous or the disbeneficial aspects of their behavior or their thoughts or their speech. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about in relation to this, before I properly get into today's topic, because this isn't actually today's topic, is that when you introspect and when you contemplate, don't just come up with conclusions, but actually change. And that's something that Rishi actually talked about, was it's no point just talking and talking and talking and thinking and thinking and thinking about stuff, sitting on a meditation cushion and meditating, and then 10 years down the line, we're still talking and discussing the exact same thing. If you are part of an organization, if you are part of an institution or a Dharma center, or I don't know, a therapy group or something, aren't there certain people that when you talk with and you discuss with, after 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 10 years, they're still talking about the exact same thing? They haven't moved on. They're still talking about how angry they are. They're still talking about how sad they are. They're still talking about how jealous they are. They're still talking about how they're dealing with their fears. And it never seems to change. And when you try and talk to them about concrete methods, practical methods, tangible methods about how they're addressing these aspects about themselves, don't you find that they don't appear to be very interested? All right, so don't be one of those people that you can easily identify. All right, don't just introspect, don't just talk about the conclusions that you come up with, but do something about it. Change. Why? Because over time, if you don't actually do anything about it, people then stop believing you. If you have a partner, and every time your partner says something, you snap at them, and then later on you apologize and say, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to yell at you that way. I didn't mean to insult you. I didn't mean to make this argument personal. After 1, 2 times, maybe 10 times if your partner's patient, okay, fine, they accept it. But let's say it grows. Let's say the reasons why you snap at them grow, and it becomes more frequent, and it happens over time, and after 10 years, you're still yelling at them, you're still screaming at them, shouting at them, fighting with them, and it's over the smallest things, and the number of reasons why you yell at them start to grow. Why would they still believe you? Right? Why would they still believe you when you say you're going to change and when you say you're sorry? Because 1 sorry is fine, 2 sorry is fine, 10 sorries, pushing it. But after 10 years, when you're still saying sorry for the exact same thing you said sorry for 10 years ago, why is your partner still going to believe you? All right? So I hope that semi answers the question or the points that were raised by Anna. And so I'm going to get into today's topic, which is actually the topic of insecurities. All right. Hello, Hu Ping Tan. Thank you for joining us this morning. Hi, Huing Nguyen. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your name. Good morning, Henry. Thank you for joining us this morning. Hi, Jerry. All right, so before I get into things today, on today's topic, I just want to say a big thank you to the sponsors of today's talk. We have 2 anonymous sponsors today. I don't know why you guys want to stay anonymous, but it's fine. The first anonymous sponsor today would like to dedicate the sponsorship to may all beings find lasting inner peace and happiness. May all become kind, wise, and have unwavering determination to benefit all beings. The second anonymous sponsor of today's talk would like to dedicate their sponsorship to all sentient beings. And the third sponsor is Jacqueline Ong Lu Yi, who would like to make the dedication. May all be blessed with great health and success and continue to benefit from Dharma sharing. So guys, thank you so much for your continued support and sponsorship of our online programs, which do help us to continue to make these programs available. I can see off to the side in my peripheral vision, the live stream keeps jumping. So please let me know if there are any technical difficulties, all right? And if you can hear me, because there are people working in the background, preparing stuff for the indoor relic stupa. Alright, so yeah, thank you guys so much for your continued sponsorship and continued support of today's of our talks. If you would like to sponsor a talk, there is a link in the description section of this video. So please click on it, because like I said, your support helps us to continue to make these online programs available. Alright, so this week, I say this week, it's been 30 minutes. I'm gonna go through it, and then if I can't finish it, I'll continue next week, alright? But this week I'm going to talk about dealing with insecurities. So what are insecurities? Insecurities are something that all of us have dealt with one way or another at some point or another. Usually starts when we are very, very young, when we are told things like, oh, that's not for you, or you won't be able to do that. Alright, so for example, personal example, when I was a kid, I tried out at a tumbling gym. I think I was 3 or 4 years old at the time. So I went for gymnastics, tumbling gym, and at the end of the tryout session, the coach told my mother in front of me, I don't think gymnastics is for her. So ever since then, I've avoided anything that, you know, involves like handstands and all that kind of thing, because when I was a kid, that's what I was told. It's not for me. I can't do it. All right. Oh no, his exact words were, I don't think she has the body to do gymnastics. I don't think gymnastics is for her. Great thing to tell a 3-year-old. But anyway, insecurities start from when we're very young, and it's important. The point I want to raise here is that actually it's important for us to be aware of the things that we see around children and how we interact with kids, because kids do pick up things from a very young age, and it sticks with them, even though we as grown-ups or adults don't necessarily realize that they are absorbing all of these things. All right, so insecurities exist on a macro level. So sources of insecurity exist on a macro level. For example, things like climate change, for example, things like recession, and insecurities also exist as a source on a more ordinary day-to-day level. For example, if I give this speech, what will people think? For example, if I have to lose weight and I go to the gym, will people at the gym laugh at me? I don't like the way I sound on video, so maybe I won't do the filming. I'm starting at a new school. What if kids don't like me? Especially at this time, will I be able to keep my job, or will I get that new job? All right, so we experience insecurities every single day from a young age, on a macro all the way up to a personal day-to-day level. All right, thank you, Jacinta, for confirming that the live stream is okay. And good morning, Penny. Thank you for joining us this morning. All right, so what is the source of insecurities? Where do insecurities come from? All right, first of all, Buddhism actually teaches us that ultimately we are all responsible for our own state of mind, and whatever happens around us is actually a manifestation of our karma. But how we react to it and how we behave and interact with it is our responsibility. Insecurities, according to Buddhism, arise from delusion, and they arise from ignorance, because, and what this means is that we are constantly living in a state of fooling ourselves that everything is okay and that everything is permanent. All right, so what do I mean by that? It means that we are not consciously... I just saw Justin walk behind me. Justin is our project director from Kechara Soup Kitchen. Hi, Justin! So, delusion and ignorance, that's what Buddhism teaches where our insecurities come from. And what I mean by us living constantly in a state of fooling ourselves is that we're not consciously aware of this. So we're always subconsciously moving through life thinking that everything is permanent and everything's fixed and that everything's okay, when in reality everything's actually always constantly in a state of flux, and that everything's always changing all the time and everything's impermanent. All right, so insecurities arise when something shakes our delusion that everything's permanent and that everything's okay and that everything is fixed. And so as a result of something arising to shake our delusion, then we feel insecure and we feel unstable. For example, we think we're desirable, and we think that we're fantastic, and we think we're a great hire, but then when we go to a job interview and the interview doesn't go well, then we start to feel insecure about our chances, and we start to feel insecure about our capabilities. Or we think that we're very well liked, but then when we're faced with giving a public speech, for example, or hosting or running a public event, and we consider all of the possibilities, all of the different people that will be in the audience, you know, with all their different thoughts, all of their different backgrounds, then a crack appears in our delusion that perhaps we're not so well liked after all, and then we get insecure about whether or not the speech or the hosting event will go well or not. Or maybe we think that we're very well spoken and we're very eloquent and we're very good at expressing ourselves. And then when we hear ourselves on video, then the illusion is shattered about our voice. And the illusion is shattered about, whether people are receptive to what it is that we have to say. So in these examples that I've given, we have an idea about ourselves that all is well. God, that reminds me of a movie, a Hindi movie. But anyway, we remind ourselves that all is well, and that we think that all is well. We delude ourselves into thinking that everything's fixed and everything's okay. And then when something comes along and then breaks the illusion and breaks our delusion, then we start to feel insecure, we start to feel unstable about our chances, all right? What Rinpoche also said is that, the quote, being insecure means that you want people to like you for what you are not. So what does that mean? So it's the common mistake that all of us make is that people with big insecurities have no ego. And that people with insecurities and people who always say, I can't, I'm not sure, I don't think I can do it, or I don't think that this is for me. People who always express themselves in that way, the common misunderstanding for all of us is that these people have no ego, or that these people are very, very humble. I'm here to shatter your illusion about that, because in reality, insecurities actually arise from ego. How? Why? Let's say you want to attempt to do something, all right? And yes, Mavis, the Three Idiots movie. I think it was one of the characters, he would like thump his chest or something and he would say, all is well, all is well. Yes, the Three Idiots movie. So good. Okay, anyway, now you guys know I watch Bollywood films. Anyway, what Rinpoche said is that insecurities actually do arise from the fact that we have a big ego. All right? Why? Because perhaps we want to attempt to do something, but we feel insecure about it. So if you meditate on a situation like that, where does that feeling of insecurity actually come from? Where does it really come from? And what are we actually insecure about? So as Rinpoche elucidated in that very short, pithy, but very deep quote, very profound quote, we want people to like us for something that we are not. All right, so when you want to attempt to do something, but you are experiencing insecurities about it, where does the insecurity come from? Perhaps you don't want to be embarrassed. Perhaps you don't want to be made a fool of. Perhaps you don't want people to laugh at you. Perhaps you don't want people to think that you're not capable. Perhaps you don't want people to think less of you. All right, so what has happened there is that we have painted a picture of what we are not. All right, we have projected an image of something that we're not, and perhaps the image is that we're very, very capable, that we're able to do lots and lots of things, that we are not just a jack of all trades, but we're a master of all trades. All right, and so the insecurity arises from the ego, which is that we've projected this image, and that's the image that we want everybody to think about us. We, for example, oh, I'm so funny, I'm the class clown, or I'm the most popular kid in school. I'm extremely capable, and therefore you should want me on all of your projects or all of your pictures or whatever. And then you live in this fear of being discovered or found out. Hence the insecurity arises, all right? So that's how insecurity arises from the ego that wants to protect itself from being embarrassed, the ego that wants to protect itself from people from finding out who we really are, the ego that wants to protect itself from being criticized, from being laughed at, all right? So insecurity also arises from ego because we don't want to put ourselves in a situation where we may be potentially criticized. And the example that all of us can relate to or have observed is the example of our Rinpoche in the Dorje Shukden situation. All right, so our Rinpoche put himself in a situation where he was constantly abused, constantly criticized, constantly attacked and vilified. And in spite of all of these challenges, Rinpoche still continued to speak up against the oppression of the Dorje Shukden practice and of Dorje Shukden practitioners. So think about it. Would you be able to put yourself in that position for the last 20 years? All right. And why is it you will not be able to put yourself in that position? And why do you feel insecure about your ability to navigate being in a position like that? Rinpoche never felt insecure. Why? Because when we feel insecure about our ability to navigate a position like that, we are insecure because we have ego. The ego that we don't want to be criticized, the ego that we don't want to be attacked, the ego that says, I don't know how to deal with it when I'm being abused verbally and physically, or I don't know how to deal with it when I'm being vilified. Whereas, on the other hand, Rinpoche had no ego about his ability to navigate and to be able to deal with all of those problems, all right? So, when you think, I don't want to give a talk because I'm afraid of what people may say about me, that's insecurity being expressed, but insecurity coming from ego. When you say, I don't want to write that article because somebody might discover that I don't know enough and they may call me out on it, that's insecurity being expressed, that's arising out of ego. When you say, I don't want to go and ask that girl or that boy for their number, I don't want to go and initiate a conversation with them, that's insecurity being expressed that is arising out of ego, the ego that somebody may tell us that we are not that desirable after all, that they're not interested in us, all right? Insecurities arise from ego. They also arise from past experiences, all right? So I'm going to get into that a little later, but perhaps there is something in our past that we have done that we're ashamed of, or that we don't want other people to find out, all right? So for example, we may have been very nasty to a partner in a previous relationship, and then we broke up, and so now we spend all of our time with our new partner or with our friends bad-mouthing our previous partner. My boyfriend was so inattentive, he never bought me gifts, he always forgot my birthdays, he always forgot anniversaries, he was very rude, and so on. All right, we spend all of our time bad-mouthing our previous partners. We talk about how it was their fault for the breakup. We talk about how they weren't loving. We talk about how they didn't communicate enough. They didn't communicate clearly. They didn't express themselves. They didn't want to talk. They didn't want to go for therapy and so on, right? So we blame everything about the breakdown of a previous relationship on them, all right? Why do we do that? We do that because of our past experiences. And we don't want people in our new relationship, in our new situation, to find out about what it is that we were involved with previously, all right? So insecurities can also come out of a past experience. Oh, Tashi Dele Rinpoche, thank you for joining us this morning or night, because it's Canada. All right, so when you talk about how insecurities arise out of past experiences, previous experiences, that is also ego, because we don't want people to know who we really are or what we are really like. And because of that insecurity, and we're trying to hide that insecurity, therefore we act in a deceptive way. We act in a way that covers. We talk with using speech that covers, all right? And sometimes people can get very, very defensive. Why? Because they don't want people to know, and they don't want people to find out who they really are. So going back to Rinpoche's quote, being insecure means that you don't want people to find out, or you want people to like you for what you are not, all right? So insecurities have an element of doubt or self-doubt. Insecurities have an element of delusion. Insecurities have an element of fear of discovery. And insecurities also have an element of deception. So we're not only deception from other people, but deception from ourselves. We're hiding from ourselves and we're hiding from other people. All right. What I want to say is don't focus on the word deception as being good or bad. Okay. So just look at the word as without judgment. Just look at the word as a method of describing, simply as a description of our action and something that we just need to change or we need to amend, all right? So insecurities have an element of all of that. Okay, so what are the consequences of insecurities? Gosh, I think we might be able to finish on time today. I am insecure about my ability to finish my Sunday sharings on time. All right, so what are the consequences of insecurities? Being insecure or being governed by insecurities blurs our vision. It prevents us from being able to make accurate decisions which are based on reality. Why? Because we have a skewed sense of what we are and what we are not capable of. We have a skewed sense of who we are and who we are not. When you don't have insecurity coloring or staining your perception, you are able to make decisions, accurate decisions based on reality. All right, so a consequence of insecurity is that it blurs our vision. A consequence of insecurity is that we end up seeing ourselves as being not good enough or being undeserving. And as a result of that, insecurities can result in us missing out on experiences and limiting our own abilities. All right, so when you get into that position, what happens is that insecurities lead you into a vicious and self-perpetuating cycle. All right, oh, just give me 1 minute. All right, so it can lead us into a vicious and self-perpetuating cycle, because when we miss out on experiences because we're insecure about being discovered, we're insecure about people finding out that we're not all that capable, we don't get an opportunity to improve. We don't get an opportunity to pick up new skills. And as a result of that, we get left behind. Now, because we get left behind, then we become insecure about our lack of ability or our lack of skills. And we don't want people to find out that we didn't move on, that we didn't improve along with everybody else. And then as a result of that, then the insecurity can lead to jealousy, it can lead to anger, and it can lead to bitterness. All right? And you see that in many people around you. You see, let's say you're working in a company, whether it's Dharma based or not, and then you see people around you over time, over the years, moving forwards and moving on. How come? Okay, you know what? Let's use Dharma Center as an example, because that's an example that all of us can relate to since we are on the Kechara Facebook page. Let's say you join the Dharma Center at the same time as somebody else, and then over time you see that that person can do pujas. Maybe they can ring the bell very nicely. Maybe they can ring the Dhammaru very nicely. Maybe you see that some people can produce articles. Maybe that you see that some people can nurture others. Maybe you see that some people can give teachings, some people can write books, and so on. All right, you see people moving ahead over time. Now, if you use your insecurity as a reason for not going into new environments, for example, let's say not volunteering in pujas, so that you can actually learn how to do, how to ring the bell, or how to ring the Dhammaru. All right. Over time, you will get left behind, because after 5-10 years, as people start to do more and more things and they start to pick up more and more new skills, you can get left behind. And what happens is, then you don't want to go into puja house, or you don't want to go into whatever it is to pick up new skills. Then the insecurity grows, the insecurity arises. Why? Because you're insecure about your lack of ability, and then that then escalates into jealousy, perhaps. Jealousy that somebody else can do it and that you can't. But why? They put in the effort over time that we did not. All right. Another consequence of insecurities is it weakens our boundaries, and we allow dysfunctional dynamics to persist without taking action. So, for example, people can continue to take advantage of us as they've already been. Why? Because we think, for example, I don't deserve to be in a better relationship. I don't deserve people to be kind to me. I don't deserve people to speak nicely to me. As I'm raising this point, what I want to say is that we should be careful not to overcompensate and to slide over into a sense of entitlement, which is that I deserve people to be kind to me. I deserve people to talk nicely to me. I deserve people to be generous with me. All right. So it's walking a fine line of not allowing dysfunctional dynamics to continue to persist without taking action, without allowing our sense of entitlement to grow. All right. So consequences of insecurities blurs our vision, so prevents us from making accurate decisions based on reality. It leads us to seeing that we're not good enough and not deserving, and therefore leads us to missing out on new experiences, which then leads us to miss out on developing new skills, which then potentially escalates into feelings of jealousy or anger. It leads us to the weakening of our boundaries, and has us allow dysfunctional dynamics to continue to persist. It leads us to becoming inconsistent with our practice, because when you're insecure, you think, well, since I'm doing this and I don't see results, and I don't see the results that I want, maybe I'm not doing it right. Maybe I should stop, and maybe I should not bother. All right. Now, if you look at it from another perspective, from another angle, insecurity, or the pursuit of security, can be actually equated with craving. So as long as we allow our insecurities to fester, and as long as we allow our insecurities to grow, a consequence of it is that we are actually reinforcing our craving. Craving of what? Craving for somebody to mollify or to appease or to soothe us. Craving for external validation or external affirmations or external praise. Craving for somebody to tell us that we're good, that we're okay, that we're capable, that we're able to do things, that we're not as bad as other people think, that we're actually pretty nice. All right. So if people keep verbalizing or keep expressing, you know what? Actually, I'm not that nice a person. If you keep talking about it, what are you trying to get at? What are you trying to get people to say? What are you trying to encourage people to tell you? What you're trying to encourage people to do is, no, actually, you know what? You are quite kind. Actually, you are quite generous. I know that sometimes you are angry, but actually, you know, there are many other positive and good qualities about you. That's what you're trying to do. All right? So, when you allow your insecurities to fester, you allow your insecurities to grow, and you don't confront your insecurities and try to do something about them, a consequence of these insecurities is that we're actually reinforcing our craving for external validation or external affirmation that we are good, that we are actually nice people, and that we're not as bad as we think we are, or that we constantly express that we are. All right? What is that? That is a sign, that, as Rinpoche said, that is a sign that the 8 worldly dharmas are very, very strong in us. Especially being happy if praised and being unhappy if criticized. All right? So, cripes. Sore throat. Okay, so I think I might actually be able to finish this talk. How do we counter our insecurities? Now that I've talked about where insecurities come from, so insecurities arising from the ego, insecurities arising from previous experiences, consequences of insecurities being that it blurs our vision, and so on, how do we counter them? Something that was told to me many, many years ago, which has stuck with me ever since, is not the best method of using to counter our insecurities, but it is, I find it helpful from time to time. Something that was told to me many, many years ago is, remember that in a self-centered world, no one is really focusing on you. All right? So the reason why I like that, when I first heard that, I was like, you know, it made me stop on my tracks, because I was thinking, yeah, that's true. You know, I mean, all of us are so self-centered. All of us, whether we want to or not, put ourselves in the center of our universes. Everything revolves around us. And I say that without judgment. I say that as a matter of description, right? All of us put ourselves in the center of our own universes, and everything seems to revolve around us. Everything is done in relations to us. And that is what we're trying to break with our practice, that habit of relating everything to us. So when that person told me that really, in a self-centered world, really no one's focusing on you, it made me stop on my tracks, because it made me think, oh, hang on, actually that's true. There's so many things that have happened that I was insecure in the past, that honestly, if people had laughed at me at that time, I don't remember it now. All right? I don't remember all the times when when a situation that I was very insecure or very unsure about, that I went into, I don't remember all of those times. And people generally don't remember those times. So think about all the times, right, that you laughed at somebody else. So you laughed at someone else. Do you actually remember what you laughed at them for? Or do you only actually remember the reason why you're still friends with them? Think of all the times when you criticize somebody else's work. Do you actually remember what it was that you criticized them for? Excuse me. And do you only remember what it is that they produced in the end? Think about all the times when you rejected somebody. All right? Do you remember everybody that you've ever rejected in a job interview? So let's say you were interviewing people for a position and you rejected many, many people. Do you remember all of the reasons why you rejected all of those people? Or do you actually only remember the person that you hired? So if you think about it that way, and then you flip it around, it works the other way too, right? Generally, most people are so focused on themselves that they don't actually have the mental space or the mental energy to focus and remember on things that you do as well. All right? So that's something that I find very helpful in certain situations that can be applied to reduce insecurity, because in a self-centered world, really, no one's focusing on you. No one remembers what it is that you do. Nobody will, well, maybe your wife or your husband, but most people in general will not remember what you do in 10, 20 years time, all right? So if there are reasons, if you face a situation and you're finding reasons to feel insecure about that situation, just think that in 10, 20 years time, in a self-centered world, no one's focused on you, nobody's going to remember it, all right? Good morning, Michael. Thank you for joining us this morning. I've seen your comments on Facebook fan page as well. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Second way to counter insecurities: train and practice. And I don't mean just practice in spiritual practice. I'm talking about in everything else in life, in every other aspect of life, because people don't get good at what they do overnight. So if you see somebody else good at what it is that they're doing, and that's leading you to feel insecure, and that's leading you to feel left behind, and that's leading you to feel jealous, think that people don't get to where they are overnight. People don't get to be good at what they do overnight, all right? They need to train and practice. And so for every one success that you see, think about all of the 99 other failures behind it that are backing it up, all right? We don't see all of the times that somebody fell down. We don't see all the times that somebody got laughed at. We don't see all the times that somebody got mocked or criticized or given feedback and so on. We don't see all of those times. So if we're ever feeling insecure about somebody else's abilities, somebody else's skills, think that they got to that point, they got to where they are now because they trained and they practiced. And at some point, they had insecurities too, but they were able to put it down and they were able to get to a place that we want to be. So if we want to be there, what is it that we need to do? What is it that we need to temporarily tahan or tolerate in order to get to that position, all right? So that leads me on to the other method of countering our insecurities, which is reframing our attitude or reframing our language and reframing our speech. When somebody gives you criticism or you are governed by the fear of criticism, don't think of it as criticism. Think of it as feedback. Whether or not it's useful feedback or not is another matter, but think of it as feedback. All right? And the more you think of it that way, the more you practice in thinking of it that way, the more your insecurities about receiving feedback, criticism, will reduce. Learn to laugh at yourself first. All right? Learn to become okay with being wrong, with apologizing and with amending and with updating your views or updating your methods based on new information and based on new knowledge. And learn to laugh at yourself. Why? And I'll get into that shortly. Laughing at yourself first removes the power that a fear of criticism or fear of being wrong will have over you. Why? Because if you've laughed at yourself first, what is it for other people to laugh about? And if they do laugh, it's not laughing at you, it's laughing with you. Because you no longer have this fear that people will need to like you. Remember what Rinpoche said, the quote that I shared from Rinpoche earlier, about how being insecure means that you want people to like you for something that you are not. If you laugh at yourself, there's no longer any power that the fear of discovery has over you, all right? So reframe your attitude. It's not criticism, it's feedback. Learn to laugh at yourself and learn to be okay with being wrong. Learn to be okay with updating your methods, updating the way you deliver things, updating the way you do things as a result of gaining new information and gaining new knowledge. I see you, Joyce, reacting to the video. Hello, thank you so much for watching this week, and I'm so glad you're not late in joining us this week. All right, another way of countering your insecurities, learning to say sorry. All right, so Rinpoche said that when we are being insecure because of our past, make amends. Then we can become secure because of the present. What does that mean? When we did something wrong in the past, something that we should apologize for, something that we should make amends for, but we haven't, then we are insecure. We are insecure because we don't want people to find out. We're insecure about being found out. We're insecure about people discovering who we really are. And if we apologize and if we own up to it, it becomes very freeing. We no longer become bound or imprisoned by the fear of discovery. What Rinpoche always told us was that we should never be afraid of being wrong. Rinpoche's exact words were, if I'm wrong, or if I'm shown that I'm wrong, I'm glad, because it gives me a chance to correct myself to be right next time. All right, so people who are very, very afraid of being wrong or very, very afraid of being proven wrong, they will be very insecure. They will do everything that they can to make sure that they are right. They will do everything that they can to make sure that they're proven right and to make sure that they're not being shown to be wrong. All right. Once or twice when you're dealing with people like that, it's okay and it's fine. All right. But can you imagine over time how tiring, that must be? Imagine you're the person who's always trying to cover the fact that you're wrong and who's always so afraid that people find out that you were wrong or that you didn't do things correctly or that you didn't do things right or that you gave inaccurate information or you gave wrong information and so on, all right? Imagine you're that person. Once or twice, if you're engaging in that kind of deceptive behavior, it's okay. I mean, it's okay in the sense that it's not that difficult for you to do. But can you imagine how tiring it must be to become a person like that, where every single thought that you have is, will people find out that I gave wrong information? Will people find out that I did the wrong thing? Will people find out that I hurt somebody else? Can you imagine living a life like that, where all of your mental energy and all of your mental space is occupied by the fear of discovery and thinking like that all the time? People who chase their own tails constantly so that no one ever finds out that they're wrong and people always think that they're right. It's extremely tiring. Now, why do I say that? Being able to get rid of this kind of state of mind is very freeing or liberating. If you look at the old lamas, you look at old monks who actually practice, why is it that they always look secure? And this is something that Rinpoche brought up to us over and over again. Why do old monks and old practitioners, senior practitioners, always look secure and always look like they're at peace? Why is it that they always look very confident, that they always look very stable and they always look very, very steady? Because Rinpoche said, because they have no fear about being proven wrong or about being wrong. All right? If they're wrong, they just apologize and they just move on, and that's it. If they're right, they just move on, and that's it. They don't hang on or cling on to the fear of being proven wrong and then become insecure as a result of that. They aren't insecure about the fear that people will find out that they were wrong or that they did something bad and so on. All right? They accept what comes to them. So what Rinpoche said is that they accept what comes to them. Whatever is challenging is accepted as a form of karma fruitioning and as a chance to purify. And whatever is pleasant is accepted as something that's fleeting, as something that's enjoyable, but it's not something that they should cling on to. All right? Gosh. All right, so how else can you counter insecurities? Remember the self-centered world. No one's focusing on you. Train and practice so that you become better over time, so that you don't give yourself reasons to not pick up new skills, so you don't give yourself reasons to be insecure. Reframe your attitude. So think of things as not as criticism but as feedback. Learn to laugh at yourself. Learn to say sorry sincerely. All right. And in a previous video, I actually talked about that. The points of what makes up a sincere apology. By saying sorry, you give up or you release the power or the hold that you have of being discovered to be being discovered to be not who you say you are. All right? Then focus on the benefit that you'll experience or you will develop or you will deliver to somebody else if you go through it. So sometimes we'll face a situation where we think, if I go through with this, will I be able to help somebody? Sometimes the insecurity can come as a result of you trying to do something good. So you think, well, let's say if I put my child into school, am I making the right decision? If I accept this job offer, am I making the right decision? And sometimes when we are in that position, insecurity can arise. If I make the wrong decision, what will happen to me? All right. So instead of focusing on that, focus on the benefit that you experience as a result of going through that difficult situation. Look beyond the wall. It's what Rinpoche always told us. If you see insecurity in front of you, if you see an obstacle in front of you, if you have fear that's in front of you, think of it as a wall and look beyond it. Focus on what's behind it and think about how you're going to get through to it and how you're going to get around it. All right. Finally, and most important of all, remember who you've taken refuge in. All right. So I'm going to assume that as a result of you watching this video on the Kechara Facebook fan page, that you in some way identify yourself with Buddhist philosophy. So remember who you've taken refuge in. We've all taken refuge in the three jewels, which are the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. So since you have taken refuge in them and every single day you recite Namo Gurube, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dhammaya, Namo Sanghaya, do you actually believe in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha? If you do believe in them, and if you do believe in the three jewels, then meditate. Meditate. Why is it you believe in them? Why do you believe in the three jewels? Why do you believe in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha? The reason why we believe in them is because we believe in their potential to bring us to enlightenment. We believe in the fact that the three jewels and refuge in the three jewels, and when I say refuge, I mean not just reciting the prayer, but actually believing them. So we believe that the three jewels can actually have the potential and ability to bring us to enlightenment. So if the three jewels have the ability to bring us to enlightenment, and if enlightenment is possible, therefore, how does insecurity fit in with that? How can we be undeserving, or how can we be not capable of anything below enlightenment if enlightenment itself is possible? So if every single day we do our sadhana, if every single day we do our practice and we recite the prayers, Namo Gurube, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dhammaya, Namo Sanghaya, and we recite it 3 times, and we generate belief and faith in the three jewels, how is faith in the three jewels and refuge in the three jewels in synchronicity? How does it combine with insecurity? How can it coexist? That's the word I was looking for. How can insecurities coexist with our belief and faith in the three jewels? All right. Now, what I want to say is, selamat pagi, Rudy. How's everything in Indonesia? Thank you for joining us this morning. So, remember what you've taken refuge in, which are the three jewels, and the fact that if the three jewels have the potential to bring us to enlightenment, therefore, and we feel secure about the three jewels' ability to bring us to enlightenment, therefore we should not feel insecure about everything that's before enlightenment. All right, and that is why it's so important to have a lama. All right, why? Because, as I mentioned before, insecurities arise from ignorance and delusion, and it arises from us having a less than accurate view of our abilities and of ourselves. How we perceive ourselves and how we perceive our abilities is stained by delusion and is stained by ignorance. So we rely on a teacher to give us a complete view of ourselves and our capabilities. Now, people always ask, when you talk about why is it that you need to take refuge in a teacher, people always ask, how can someone else know us better than we know ourselves? And what I want to say is that people who ask that either don't want to face the truth, or we don't want to face ourselves. All right? Why? Because on an ordinary day-to-day basis, we rely on expert opinions all the time. We go and see therapists, we go and see psychologists, we go and see counselors, we go and see psychiatrists, and so on, and we listen to all of their diagnoses. When a researcher or a scientist comes up with something in the newspapers, in the media, we take their conclusions as a statement of fact. We take it as a matter of fact. We believe it. Why? Because they're an expert in their chosen field. For example, in medicine, when we have a diagnosis, it's very common, it's the norm for us to go and seek a second opinion. So why is it that it's so odd that we would rely on somebody who's an expert of the mind, which is our teacher? Our teacher has seen thousands of people just like us in the past. And that's something that Rinpoche said. Rinpoche said that, in his... Joyce, I see your question. I will answer that as soon as the live stream's over because I've totally run out of time. All right, but I will answer it. Good morning, Sharon. Thank you for joining us this morning. So, likewise, our teacher has seen thousands of people just like us in the past. And that's something that Rinpoche said. Rinpoche said that in his 30, 40 years of dealing with members of the public, Rinpoche saw the same patterns of thinking and the same patterns of behaving and action and decision making over and over again. And we all know that Rinpoche is actually clairvoyant and Rinpoche is actually omniscient, so that's not really it. But what Rinpoche explained to us is that Rinpoche saw patterns of thinking and behavior over time that allowed Rinpoche to give counsel and give advice and give guidance, because Rinpoche saw in many, many previous occasions how those patterns will lead to certain results or certain conclusions, and therefore if Rinpoche gave this type of advice or gave this type of guidance, that it will lead to a different result or a particular result. All right. So On our day-to-day life, we rely on expert opinions all the time, in medicine, in school, at work, and so on. So why is it so odd and so unusual that we would rely on the advice and the guidance and the training of an expert of the mind, which is our teacher? Why not rely on a teacher? All right. Our teachers, they see what we're capable of. All right. They see what we are able to do, what our potential is, and they don't see what it is that we are at the moment. Our teachers will tell us all the things that we can do, which we think we cannot do, or that we say we cannot do. So relying on a teacher, therefore, is a very good indirect way of overcoming our insecurities, because our teachers tell us what we can do. All right, our teachers tell us all the things we can do, which we already automatically are insecure about our ability to do. A teacher will never, ever set us a task that we cannot do. And even if we fail in that task, even if we're not able to complete that task successfully, there is still a lesson to be learned from that failure, or from that so-called failure, or from our so-called mistakes. That lesson which can then be carried on into the future. All right. If you look at the people who are close to Rinpoche, or who were in very close proximity to Rinpoche, let me tell you this. A lot of our time with Rinpoche was spent with Rinpoche telling us that we were wrong. Rinpoche told us, or maybe he told me, that I was wrong all the time. And Rinpoche wouldn't just do it in private, Rinpoche would also do it in public, so that we got used to our ability. We got used to being able to, number one, deal with the fact that we're wrong. Number two, deal with the fact that we're being told publicly that we're wrong. Number three, get used to the habit, or develop the habit or ability to be able to take on new information and amend our views for the future. All right. Why is it important for us to be able to admit that we're wrong? It's important for us to be able to admit that we're wrong, not just because it's for the benefit of our own mind, but Rinpoche wanted us to be able to amend ourselves and to amend our information and to be pliant and to be flexible. Why? Because we want to be able to help others. And if the information that we have, or the behaviors that we have now, are creating harm to other people, developing the ability to take on new information and therefore transform your habit and transform your behavior and transform your action into something that's beneficial will help other people, will help yourself, will be freeing, will be liberating. All right. So people who run away from the teacher, or people who stay away from the teacher, or who try not to get close to the teacher, what I want to say is that it's not about the teacher at all. All right. People who don't want to be close to the teacher, or who run away from the teacher, in actuality are not running away from the teacher, but they're running away from themselves, and they're running away from their own potential. By the way, if you guys can hear behind me all that plastic and things moving around, that's volunteers preparing for the indoor relic stupa. We have 72 volunteers today for, I think, the last day of volunteering. All right, so we rely on a teacher. Being close to the teacher puts us in a position where we are trained to overlook and overcome our insecurities, and to not be governed by them, and to not allow our insecurities and our fears to make our decisions for us. Why? Because our teacher tells us over and over again that we're wrong. Our teacher tells us over and over again that we can do things that we say we cannot do. And for the love of our teacher, for the devotion to our teacher, we do those things. We try those things. We have to quell our insecurities. We are compelled to push down our insecurities, to keep our insecurities in view, and to do it anyway. All right, so you end up having training in putting down your insecurities. When you have a teacher, and when you rely on a teacher, and you fully rely on a teacher, and you surrender to the teacher, we're giving our minds space to consider things that are beyond and away from our insecurities. While our insecurities are KIV, which Rinpoche was very fond of saying, when our insecurities are kept in view, we can fill that space with accomplishments, and we can fill that space with progress, so that we feel more capable over time. So what Rinpoche will often do is Rinpoche will often set easy tasks for very, very insecure people. And then Rinpoche would praise them heavily for completing it. And there was one time when Rinpoche did that, and I was like, but Rinpoche, so many people, like in my head, I didn't say this to Rinpoche, okay? I didn't like stand there with my arms folded, but I was thinking in my head, but Rinpoche, The task was so easy. So many people have done it before. Why is Rinpoche like praising this person so heavily for it and making such a big deal out of it and texting everybody about it and, you know, like putting it all over the internet and all of that? Why is Rinpoche doing that? I was thinking. And what Rinpoche said was, I think, well, obviously Rinpoche read my mind. Rinpoche said, this person is very insecure. And this person thinks that they're not capable of a lot of things. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give this person very, very easy tasks, many small easy tasks, which anybody else would be able to do very easily. But I want to give them these tasks so that they complete it. And then when they complete it, then I praise them and I make them feel good about it and I make them feel happy about it. So it builds up their sense of capability or the sense of ability, so that over time, as their confidence builds up, then they start to feel more secure about themselves and they start to feel more secure about their abilities. Why do I do that? So she said, why do I do that? I do that because, can you imagine what it's like to go through life feeling insecure about all things all the time? Can you imagine what living life like that is like? Wouldn't it be so nice for that person to always think that when they see something, yes, I can do it. Yes, I'm able to do it. And if I can't do it, I know where I can ask for help. So Rinpoche thought like that. And that was the extent and the detail and the level to which Rinpoche cared about people. All right? So when you have a teacher and you have devotion to your teacher and you focus and you surrender to your teacher and your teacher asks you to do things, having your teacher there is a focal point for you. It allows you to focus on your Lama and it allows you to focus on your spiritual guide and to block out all of the noise. What noise is that? That noise that we have in our heads all of the times, the noise of our doubts, the noise of our fears, the noise of our insecurities. The noise is that internal monologue that we have that's going in our heads all of the time about all of the things that we cannot do, about all of the things that we cannot accomplish, about all of the things that we don't deserve, that we're not capable of, and so on. All right? So when you focus on and when you nurture your relationship with your teacher and you focus on your teacher's instructions and you focus on why you're doing it and you focus on the fact that I love my guru, I have faith in my teacher, I have faith that what my teacher sets for me will not lead me astray or will not lead me to harm and will not lead me to disbenefit. I have faith in my teacher, and then you move forward and you focus on that, you move forward and you do it. That's how slowly over time you can get over insecurities, all right? So when people talk about guru devotion and they talk about why it's important to have a teacher, it's not some slavish, cultish thing about about serving somebody, all right? If you break it down and if you really understand guru devotion has so many more benefits. Being close to our teacher has so many more benefits for us that we are not necessarily aware of at the time when we're close to our teacher and when we're being trained by our teacher, all right? When you focus on your Lama and you focus on your Lama's instructions and you focus on the benefit, in fact, you know what, you don't even have to focus on the benefit of the instruction. Just focus on the instruction, focus on completing the instruction. Then all of the criticism, all of the abuse, all of the attacks, and whatever else that you might get or whatever else that you might be insecure about, it stops being important to you. Why? Because fulfilling your Lama's instruction becomes the most important thing to you. More important than your fears, more important than your doubts, more important than your lack of confidence, and more important than your insecurities, all right? And when those things stop becoming important to you in your relationship with your teacher, over time, as you do that more and more and more, those things also stop becoming important to you in every other aspect of your life. All right? That is, if people want to know, if people really want to know, that is what Rinpoche always expressed to us about how Rinpoche was able to tolerate all of the attacks that Rinpoche received as a result of practicing Dorje Shukden. Was because Rinpoche received the practice of Dorje Shukden from His Holiness Khyabje Song Rinpoche, and Rinpoche focused on that. And so, come what may, regardless of whatever happened, regardless of Rinpoche's insecurities, manifested insecurities about whether people would come to the Dharma, whether people would have faith in Lama Tsongkhapa, and all of that, all of Rinpoche's insecurities manifested insecurities no longer mattered, because Rinpoche knew that Khyabje Song Rinpoche would never assign anything to him that would lead to harm. Hence, why Rinpoche was able to tahan and was able to continue to speak up in support of the practice of Dorje Shukden. Alright, so I've completely run out of time. It's 11:15, but I'm done. So, if you guys have any questions, Joyce, I see your question. I will respond to it as soon as this live stream is over. Thank you guys so much for joining me this week. Before I go, I want to leave you guys with a thought, which is, have you been insecure about anything in the past week? Was there anything that you were faced with, or that you had to deal with, that you weren't so confident about, that you were insecure about? And as a result of your insecurity, did you make a decision that you weren't so comfortable with? And perhaps you might have made a different decision had you felt more secure about the situation. So contemplate and meditate on that. And then as you move into the new week and you're faced with new situations, think, examine and watch your own reaction, watch your own feelings, watch your thoughts arising. Why am I insecure about this particular occasion? Is there something that I'm trying to hide? Is there something that I don't want people to find out about me? Is there something that I don't want to uncover about myself? Are those feelings real? Are those thoughts real? Is my insecurity founded? Does my insecurity have basis? If my insecurity does not have basis, if I go through with this action, if I make this decision, what kind of benefit will there be? What kind of result will there be? All right. Some people actually, now I come to think about it, some people actually deal with this by going through a day of never saying no. So whatever comes up, whatever question comes up, they will never say no. I don't know if I can recommend that, but that's what some people do. All right. So set a good intention for this week as you move into this week, when you're faced with new situations and you're faced with questions and you're faced with new opportunities. All right. Which is my insecurity real? And if I push my insecurity aside, is there something that I can benefit from, or is there something that somebody else can benefit from? All right. Before I go, I just want to remind you guys very quickly, upcoming programs for today, Dodi Shukden Sadhana on the Kechara Facebook fan page at 10 p.m. as well. And then on Tuesday at 9:30 p.m, there is Easy Dharma for the New Normal by Pastor David on the Kechara Facebook fan page. Thursday's Paranormal live streaming by JP, is postponed till next week because we will be busy that night preparing for the 1 year Parinirvana anniversary of our Guru His Eminence Kapje Sam Tuku Rinpoche. So on September 4th, there will be pujas all day long. All right. So if you guys are a student of Rinpoche, please do attend, especially the 1000 Offering Lama Chopa Puja, which is at 3 p.m. on September the 4th. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I'm so sorry if it was disjointed and slightly messy. Yeah, just it's been a day of many things, many changes. I am going to go now to help with the indoor relic stupa because we still have to fill up the bumpa. All right. So like I said, thank you guys so much for joining me today. Please don't forget to do your dedications. I will do my dedications once this live stream is over. And once again, I wish to thank the 3 sponsors, 2 Anonymous and Jacqueline, for your support of today's talk. If you wish to contribute to the talk, there is a link in the description section of this video. And I will see you guys same time, same place next week. If you have any questions, if you have a request for a particular topic to be covered, let me know. All right. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a fantastic week ahead. And if you're Malaysian, Selamat Hari Merdeka for tomorrow. Bye guys.